On Monday, December 22nd, 2014, my friend Cross and I walked around the rec yard discussing his medical care. Cross has been receiving treatment at UVA Medical Center for a rare disease called scoliosis. Scoliosis is an inflammatory disease caused by an adverse reaction from your immune system to some mixtures of pathogens. On this particular day, Cross has asked me to meet him outside to talk. Every so often, the pressures of living in prison with a potentially life-threatening illness places upon him the need to act. When those moments arrive, I mostly just walk with him and listen as he communicates the strain of living with his condition. However, that day was different. On that day, Cross told me that he lost his vision in his left eye, and he was afraid that he might lose vision in his right eye. Cross is scheduled to be released from prison in October of 2015. And because of his release date is so close, he's a prime candidate for a medical pardon. But Cross doesn't want to be pardoned. In fact, Cross isn't sure he wants to be released next year, because Cross won't be able to afford the care he currently receives once he's released. I was asked what is the connection between the labor struggle and the role of prison in the global economy. Well, in Virginia, there are an estimated 40,000 prisoners in the prisons on any given day. Roughly 7 out of 10 of these prisoners are African Americans. Approximately 95 of all prisoners in Virginia are male. So what you have is a prison in Virginia made up of mostly black men. Now, black men only make up about 9% of Virginia's total populations, and yet we make up about 65% of the state's prison population. 60% of that are black men in their prime, between the ages of 18 and 40. This conflates with the 45% dropout rate among African American men. Add to that, African Americans as a whole are much more likely to experience living in highly concentrated areas of poverty. Compared to every other racial group in the state, now this mixture of poverty and lack of education naturally is an antecedent of crime. Black men and women traditionally have provided Virginia its largest source of menial skilled labor. Just trace back to 1619. Today, however, menial skilled labor is becoming less useful in Virginia. Free trade combined with technological advancements are making all of us young black men in here useless to the global economy. Simply put, we don't have any job skills that can be used. Now, we are still valuable as consumers in the global economy because we still have families and friends that will give us money. Add to that, the Virginia tax dollars finance prison slave wages. Through the so-called work programs, these work programs are supposed to help prisoners develop a sense of responsibility that comes from having a job and contributing to the daily operations of this penal society. So guys work as education aides, treatment aides, food service workers, yard crew workers, recreation crew workers, and here at Buckingham, there's a sheet metal shop. Now combined, there are about 480 workers on any given day making between 27 cents and 70 cents an hour. Most guys are capped at 30 hours a week, so the average monthly expenditure on the job programs by the state is roughly $23,500, or about $48 per worker. After the state takes 10% of your income for your supposed re-entry fund, we are left with about $43 as disposable income. Now, beginning in the mid-90s, Virginia switched to a mass incarceration criminal justice model. They abolished parole and mandated all prisoners serve a minimum of 85% of their sentence. At the same time, they built 4 super maximum security prisons, which are Red Onion, Waylands Ridge, Sussex 1, Sussex 2, and Sussex 2. Thank you. That cost taxpayers over $100 million each. Within the system, the DOC switched from an old to a new penal strategy and implemented the phrase controlled movement. In the Virginia DOC, this was just code for their mission to stabilize the prison population. As he transformed us into a market, the Virginia DOC was beginning to privatize prison services such as commissary, medical, food service, telecommunications, etc. And they need prisoners and contractors both to be able to operate in a safe, secure environment. Thus, you have the implementation of the so-called controlled movement. Now, almost immediately in the first 5 years of this strategy, from 96 to 2000, Virginia DOC began a campaign of labeling formally approved property items such as jewelry, watches, tennis shoes, 13-inch televisions, etc. as contraband. In some instances, these just confiscated items guys had, and in others, these just stopped allowing us to purchase the items. Once this overhaul was complete, the new contractors were allowed to resell us generic versions of these same items at a higher price. For example, we used to be able to order tennis shoes from an outside vendor, but we weren't allowed to spend over $50 for a pair of shoes. Now we're only allowed to purchase shoes from a commissary, which is contracted by Keith Incorporated, and they sell us shoes that are between 60 and 100. In fact, I have a 13-inch television in my cell right now. So what this highlights is that the prison industrial complex today is concerned so much with creating a viable labor market in so much as it is a viable consumer market. However, labor struggles and prison struggles intersect because of globalization. Modern economics forces such as automation, digitalization, and outsourcing are making now even medium-skilled labor useless. In the so-called modern societies with developed economies, this puts so many people in a position where crime is increasingly becoming the only option for basic survival. Once you're caught, you'll be placed in a draconian penal colony where those corporatists who lobby to keep you in here because they fear your existence in society can sell you products. As the black male population in our society is properly contained, others labeled as potential threat groups will become the primary targets for containment. This is the Latino immigration population, along with black women and the emerging poor white populations. This is the connection between the role of prisons and labor struggles in the global economy. The fact that America's 400 wealthiest people have wealth equivalent to the bottom 150 million. As the income inequality gap continues to widen, labor opportunities and wages will decrease. At the same time, prisons acting as containment centers, control threats will increase. As for my good friend Cross, his story highlights the toll placed on some people by the behavior of the greedy segment of our society. What happens when profits are placed before justice is you have men in prison terrified of leaving for fear that they will be unable to continue to afford their treatment. Over 50 million Americans live in poverty. These people are both unemployed and underemployed, unable to earn a living wage at all. Every day, we, the poor and working class population, seem to be getting larger. And we are the threat that the wealthiest among us hope to contain with their prisons. This is why we must unite.